Hey guys, it's your host Julian. What better way to kick off the spookiest month of the year than with a little Hey Arnold Urban Legends deep dive with series creator Craig Bartlett, composer Jim Lang, and writer from my favorite Hey Arnold episode of all time, Pigeon Man, Joe Purdy. I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons that help support this podcast: Bill, Brent, Brittany, Eight-Legged Bird, and Jacob. Thank you all so much for your support. It truly means a lot. If you want to become a member of our Patreon channel to help support this show and get all these episodes early and ad-free, follow the link below and sign up today. Now, let's get to my chat with Craig, Jim, and Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's My Podcast. I'm Mr. Julian. Today, I'm joined by composer for Hey Arnold, Mr. Jim Lang.
Hey, Joe.
One of the greatest writers of all time, Mr. Joe Purdy. Joe, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Julian.
Oh, thank you. And for the man that would be no show without him, Mr. Craig Bartlett. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, good to see you again.
Woo!
As
Oh, that's
always.
glad.
And also, can I just say, Mr. Lang, you're beautifully lit. I mean, I'm all washed out.
No.
Lang looks like he just stepped off a magazine cover.
It's those Northern California fires are just like,
And brings it out on you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking urban legends today. Some of the coolest episodes I remember watching from Hey Arnold growing up were all of the urban legends. Before we dive into those episodes, though, Craig, I would love to know how does urban legends come to be? Because you didn't really see this in too many cartoons, especially during this time frame. So how does this one come about?
Our first urban legend was Stoop Kid. And that was those scrappy early days when we were really duking it out, trying to figure out what the show was going to be. And I love that even Stoop Kid had an urban legend built into it. And so we kind of set it up. It took a few more urban legends to really get the thing completely set up, where Sid was going to be the gatekeeper and he was going to introduce it. And then he'd say, "Take it away, Gerald," and Gerald would tell it. We had Grandpa tell Haunted Train.
Mhm.
And I think by the time they did Wheeze and Ed, it was like Sid said, the legend of Wheeze and Ed goes back to 2 years ago, whatever. And then he got Gerald. But we figured him out in the first half of the year, and we knew we loved it. And then each time we would do another episode and get it back, we'd go, I love this. Like, let's do it this way from now on. Let's have Gerald tell it, and let's have and Jim, you'd often kind of do that kind of I don't know, some sort of tribal thing where they were like, oh,
Yeah, this is something you might find interesting. Before we did Hey Arnold, I did a couple of projects with John Carpenter, one of which was called In the Mouth of Madness.
Mhm.
And for In the Mouth of Madness, I recorded, there were, evil creatures living under the ground. And so I recorded a bunch of voices on the 24 track of me going, and, kind of layered everything 24 voices deep, preset that I had made for that. And when we started the first Urban Legends thing we did, when Gerald started talking, I just thought, I wonder what that would sound like if I put that underneath him. And it was like a kind of a slam dunk, and everybody responded to it, and it made it even funnier, so
yeah.
So that's where all that stuff came from. And in fact, every now and then today, I still trot that stuff out.
Jim, you were finishing In the Mouth of Madness when we were starting Hey Arnold, weren't you?
I think, when we did the pilot.
What a summer, man. That was 30 years ago, y'all. Summer of 94.
Dude, I'm telling you, that was there's a lot of stuff coming over the transom right then. And we were doing another show too. I mean, this is off topic from Urban Legends, but Craig and I were doing another show for like a theme park for Knott's Berry Farm in LA.
Yeah, Julian, we've talked about Bob, I bet.
We have a little bit, man. But like I said, I didn't want to step on any toe. I love those stories.
God bless Bob Rogers. That's how I met Jim Lang.
Right.
Amen.
So before we get into the episodes here, man, Joe, you've never been on the show, but Craig, how do you start working with Joe? How does Joe come into the fold for Hey Arnold, and then we'll rotate into the episodes right after that?
I mentioned here, Craig, how I got in I mean, you know how I got in, but of the original time, which is, but sorry, Craig, go.
No, August of, well, August of 95. So 29 years ago, when we got greenlit in January and started the production of the first 20 half hours, January 95. Made the pilot in most of 94, all of 94. And in beginning of 95, we got the series. And by that summer, I'm lucky us, man. I think they let us add another staff writer. And
No, Rachel left. Remember?
oh, it was because Rachel vacated the spot. Yeah, you're right. And so Joe had brought in. He came in with Pigeon Man, so he was hired.
Jesus Christ, that's how you open up your career at Hey Arnold as Pigeon
And he
Man?
came with Pigeon Man. That was his pitch.
Can I tell you quickly when I met Craig? I mean, obviously I met Craig, but I met Joe and Joe A. and Steve. Do you want to hear this? This is an urban legend.
Oh, no, please tell me. Tell me all your stories, Magic Man.
I was avoiding Jim for most of my career. No, I'm kidding. I had snuck in, as it were, to the Universal building, the big black tower in Universal City, because our friend Paula Kaplan, Greg has known also for years. She was working there. A friend was working as an exec, doing something at Nickelodeon. Anyway, I snuck in to use the Xerox machine to make copies of a spec script, because that's what you do as writers. And I was then, go and sneak in and hand them to producers and get work. Anyway, and I was working on some other stuff here and there. And Paul was like, "You got to meet these guys. They're starting a show soon." So it must have been like the end of 90. I don't know when you guys were in Universal.
We did. We just basically occupied that office in Universal and also at 4040 Vineland. They had Nickelodeon space in both places, and they probably was right at the beginning of 95, Joe.
It must have been.
It could have been the end of 94, but I think in the very first month they just stuck Steve and Joe in that office building.
So funny. And I went and met them, and then they were like, "Hey, man, hey." And then they pitched something. They pitched Hey Arnold to me, and both were talking at once. I mean, Steve, you're not going to interview, but Joe, they both talk completely fast at once. And I was like, "Sounds good, sounds cool, sounds good. Hot off the press, here's some scripts." And then they called, which was really nice, came in and pitched some ideas. One of them was Pigeon Man, and I'll tell you why. But and I was like, "What? This is a cartoon? That's completely below me." No, and I had no idea from their pitch that it was animated. I mean, at all. And it was just,
oh my God, they didn't make it clear that it was animated.
I don't know, because it was, I mean, you can imagine Joe
Two
talking
live action guys. Yeah.
and maybe there was a picture and it's really cool. And he's a friend and they live in a city. And I was like, cool. I'm from New York and I can do that. Anyway, and I was like, cool, we'll get it. Anyway, so yeah, then I think I met them in March, and I did a rewrite of DOS Subway.
Wow.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then Rachel was leaving for personal reasons, Rachel Lippman. And and then I mean this is like, and so yeah, I mean, how lucky. Then I mean, I'd met Craig before that because I came in and pitched and was like immediate. I was like, this was incredible. And we watched the pilot. I remember showing the pilot to my wife. These guys all know, and older son, Ben, and they were just like blown away.
How old was Ben, Joe?
Well, so Ben was, let's see, what was 94? He was born in 91, sorry. So he was
three or four when we started.
4.
And
Yep.
5 the next year. Yeah, no, it's always fun having kids, especially if you had execs that had kids and the execs kids are like,
My kid did this. My kid did this over the
My favorite
weekend.
exec story is, Linda Semensky, who was a junior exec on the beginning of Hey Arnold, and then she
Isn't that funny to
went
think?
over and set up Cartoon Network, and then she quit Cartoon and went to PBS, and I brought her Dinosaur Train, a 30-second test we made, and she showed that to her kid, Dinosaur Train, the first 30-second test, and her 3-year-old kid said, "No want test, want episode."
She's a
I know.
saint.
I know. Thank God for
And
Sarah.
thank God for Linda also.
Yeah.
That's
She's definitely.
that's so
Go
funny.
ahead.
So anyway, that's how I met them, and it was kismet, and I mean I could not be more grateful. And then like lifelong friends and creative and actual friends. But
Yeah.
and also it was great because I could walk to the office when they were at Vineland because I was literally like 4 blocks away. I was like, this was great because we only had one car. So,
Oh, well, thank
you
you
know,
for
I
sharing.
wish we had video of Vineland. I wish we had taken that because it was like, I mean, that's a whole other episode to do. But
Really good picture I can send you, Julian, is the one where we're sitting in Vineland when we just finished recording Parents' Day. But Joe is in the picture with Steve and me and the other writers, but Jim was not there. Sadly, Jim was over probably making music as fast as he could in Echo Park.
Echo Park. That
Well,
place
like
was like Animal House. It was like Animal House. We made a cartoon from like people. It's hot as hell in the summer. People literally, I think of that. People like just like wearing like maybe shorts, just underwear was so hot. Like guys just like
And
shirtless.
that was the 4040 Vineland. That space was like, it could have been anything. Could have been a dentist's office, but it had one big room that was like the killing floor. And it was just, the painters were in there and the layout guys were in there and the board artists were in there. And the lucky people worked in offices around that giant room. But that giant room reminds me of that Paul Simon song. All that winter we shared a cold.
So true. It's so funny, Craig.
Like, yeah, it was
It
like
was
the
crazy.
plague.
I know. Well, it was crazy because it was like, and out of that, I mean, at the same time was, I mean, they were wrapping up. Joe Murray was wrapping up.
Hilariously, we were taking office by office. We were taking up Joe Murray's office space where he'd made Rocco, but which it was finished. I don't know how many they made, but they were done. And so they were like, you're out on this date, you're out on this date, as they all finished up their last shows. So we were
then remember we moved upstairs.
Yeah.
Moved upstairs, and Steve Hillenberg was, I mean, Steve.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. While we were there, all the time we were in the Vineland building, it seemed, Hillenberg had one single tiny office, and over the window was a poster, a handmade Sponge Boy poster, because as you know, it was once called Sponge Boy. And that was all we had. That was all the information we had about SpongeBob, was that for years Steve was in there making it practically by himself. And and then in '99 it came out, and we were all like, look at this thing.
There needs to be a documentary on this time.
A monster.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I thought about, because he showed us all over the years some other stuff when we were like, that's really cool. This seems like the furthest thing from anything Nickelodeon would do. And of course now, I mean, Craig and I laugh about it. It's like now literally everyone
everything Nickelodeon is doing.
Right. Yeah. And everyone that drove past Nickelodeon that day now claims to have greenlit it or been my idea.
I'm glad I thought of it.
Like, you were a security guard for an hour. But anyway, that's the long. What was that was a long, and that's how we made
Legend of 4040 Vineland.
Well, if I got anything from that, it's just there needs to be somebody to do like a deep dive on that era of because I just had Joe on a couple before we took a break for the last month. I just had Joe on, and he was talking about Steven had came up as well as a couple other people, and he had talked about just the entire, just what was going on, because he had did my favorite Rocko's Modern Life episode, and then it was just, he just went off to the side and he started developing it, and then it was fucking insane after that, and it was Nickelodeon after that. And you guys are saying it's the same thing. That's all they're really pumping out right now at Nickelodeon. That's their prized cash cow, their golden goose. Like I said, we're gonna talk some urban legends. So we're gonna talk Weezened, Haunted Train, and Pigeon Man. Of course, I'm gonna say Pigeon Man for the end, mainly because I don't want to cry on you, Joe, too early and make you have to sign off. So we're gonna save the crying on my end for the end. So where do you guys want to start? You guys want to start Weezened or Haunted Train?
Let's do Haunted Train.
Do Haunted Train. All right. So folks, if you haven't seen this, there's something wrong with you. Go ahead and check this out. You can get it on Paramount or You can get it on Hulu too, and then you can do like I did and buy all of these and keep them for a physical copy because it's just something special about having a physical copy of this. So this one, we open it up with the kids being bored, eating ice cream. They played checkers. They played every board in the boarding house. They've done everything they possibly can, and Grandpa comes over and spins a yarn for them and tells them about this haunted train. So I led it with Jim. In my opinion, out of the 3 episodes we're talking about, this is my favorite part of all of the music when it comes to this. This was my favorite episode when it came to the music. How fun was this one for you to do?
It was super fun. I've always felt like animation and horror movies had a lot in common as far as the scoring is concerned, because the score is really married to what's going on in the image more closely than it would be in a kind of like a normal dramatic thing or a sitcom or something like that. There's a lot less music, but in a horror film, there's a ton of music, and there's a ton of music in animation. So, and as Craig observed, I had just been doing stuff with John Carpenter, so my horror game was in good shape. but there's something that we did always in Hey Arnold was to play the dramatic stuff, the big orchestral dramatic stuff, really straight up. I was never making fun of it. I was trying to write it like I would write it if I was doing a big, 70 millimeter feature. And obviously I wasn't, and I'm not that guy. I'm not a conservatory trained composer, but all that stuff was the way it sounded in my head, all the scary stuff. And it was just so much fun to write, because it was opposite, really kind of like the opposite of what was, there's all this goofy shit going on in there, but the score was saying, no, this was really serious.
That's what I love, actually, the fact that Jim can score stuff. So it's all the joy of what we love about horror films. It's all there. At the same time, somehow, he's kidding, it's always like, don't worry, kids, we're completely pummeling you with this dramatic music. But in the end, it's like, wah, and it's going to be okay.
That's so probably why I didn't do any more films with John Carpenter. Because oftentimes, I hope John never sees this, but oftentimes when I was working on those things, they're so over the top that you would just think, this is almost funny, that this is right. Yeah, and it's great filmmaking. It's really great pulpy horror filmmaking, which is John's. That's his sweet spot. Anyway,
I agree, though. I think Jim's ability to really bring it with the big movie stuff and turn on a dime, because they're 11 minutes long too. So
amazing, yeah.
Hit you with one thing and then turn on a dime and then do something else, and he's light enough on his feet that you can tell it's going to be okay. We're kidding. The haunted train guy didn't really lose his arm. There's like a smoking arm falls on.
Oh, that's right. That's my favorite part, the smoking.
And then you finally see him in the end, and he's all patched up like Frankenstein.
It was a really fun episode, and with something like this, you start to see, especially towards almost late 90s, you start to see a lot more holiday-esque episodes coming. Halloween, Christmas, you got some Hanukkah episodes in there as well. Would something like the Urban Legends, would they open up the budget just a little bit more to put a little bit more? No, so it was just the same standard as a regular episode?
They were treated like regular episodes. We had a little bit of give in our production where Tucker directed Haunted Train.
It's birthday today.
It's Tuck's birthday today?
Oh, just like coincidence. I know, to Tuck. I mean, talk about the greatest.
I'm so glad we brought up Tuck, because
Tuck.
I happy birthday, man. I write it down because Craig shared my favorite Tucker story, because whenever somebody has passed, I always love, because we were going to talk Tucker as soon as we started doing a wrap up, because I love Tucker stories. Anytime somebody passes, I always like, hey, what's your favorite memory? Craig, I'll do a horrible job at telling yours that you told me the first time we had you on 2 years ago. And it was the shit sandwich in the fridge, and you weren't sure if it was a Tuck shit or a Bruno shit. That is still my favorite. And I've heard, I don't know what it is about animation and shit stories. Everybody has a shit story
Everyone
that's ever
has
been on
one.
this. Yeah, everybody's got one from animation that I've had on that I've talked to.
That's
But
hilarious.
Jim, I never got to ask you when you were on so many years ago. Do you have a favorite Tuck Tucker moment, story, memory? But when you think about Tuck Tucker, man, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
No, I don't. I don't have. I can't isolate a particular thing because Tuck and I barely. I mean, we spent more time socially than we did
Hmm.
on the job together. But the thing about Tuck was, and I'm sure you know this, and Craig and Joe would attest to it. Obviously, his sense of comic timing was unparalleled in my
Hmm.
experience of all the stuff that I've done over the years. um, Tuck could nail the bend and stretch. He could nail the the amount of time that it took to get to an expression to pay off a gag. And for a composer, that's like a hot bath on a cold day, man. It's like the music sticks to the picture like you wouldn't believe. And
Yeah.
that's everything that I worked on that Tuck did. Well, I have to say the whole show, Hey Arnold, I've never done another show that consistently hit the mark the way Hey Arnold did. But Tuck stuff especially was just awesome that way.
Yeah, we had such talented artists working, there were always four groups all working on boards at the same time. So Tuck really only got to do 25%. He really did more like 30, 40% because I just squeezed that much more love out of that guy. But he was such a hard worker that he'd finish his thing and then plus up somebody else's. But and also he ended up in more and more supervisory directorial position, so that's their job anyway, and he would manage to be making something and boarding something and fixing other people's stuff and making kind of the very best visuals that the show ever had. I mean, no offense to Raimi or any other brilliant artists who directed and boarded for
Bar
me,
none.
but Tuck
Absolutely.
just was there with me on day one, and he and I deeply communicated to him what I wanted this world to be, and then the rest is just him. He was so busy drawing that even if I tried to, I couldn't have controlled all the stuff that he made. He was always, busy drawing the next thing. And the Haunted Train is just full of touches from beginning to end. And the setup at the front where they're on the steps and Grandpa comes out and tells it. Then they go down to the train station. There's a wonderful long magical pan down to the station. The interior of the abandoned train station is all Tuck.
With the
Engine
light,
25
yeah.
is all Tuck. It's just all Tuck. And when at the end, when he sings and plays the accordion, since we're talking about music, sung by Jim Lang, that sometimes late at night, that one. You look at him as that crazy leathery face that's sort of patched back together. We were all working together. Everybody was bringing it, and the collaboration was intense and really good right from the start, wouldn't you say, you guys? It's like people were always
Absolutely.
coming in going, "How about we do this?" And I gave Tuck as much free reign as I possibly could because he was just so incredibly good.
What made him so special?
I mean, Tuck was just like, it was like one of these for me because I'd never worked on an animated show before. But there was from top to bottom, like everyone was a true creative spirit, like through and through, which I know you find in showbiz, but there was just like extraordinary. And then it just became clear to me. And then, I mean, I know to everyone, then women like rose up, which was really nice of Craig and helping producing, etc. But still, it was like, like it was like having, I don't know, whoever the GOAT, on a sports team with you it's like, I mean, it's Tuck. I think that Tuck also just like you would say like, well, you want to take a crack at this, Tuck? Or he would clean up a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And there was no, I know you were going to say something, Craig, because I have a couple of Tuck stories, but just quick, but you were going to say something, Craig, sorry.
That's it. You keep going, Joe.
No, first of all, Tuck never he never wore long pants. He wore shorts every day, no matter what. I mean, I may have seen him once in long pants. huge, hilarious practical joke of the shit sandwich, which went on, which was like, you don't have to tell, but like, I feel like it went on for months that someone was like stealing this sandwich. And he was like, I'm going to get that
Yeah.
mother. And, it was children's television, which I mean, I learned like within 8 seconds because I shared an office with Steve Vixton, who, at that time when we started had like the longest beard and hair in the world. He was like ZZ Top on steroids. But we and
Howard
with
Hughes.
total Howard Hughes.
Hughes.
I mean, it was, and he may have been. He was Howard Hughes without the cash. And then with Joe, like you immediately worked kind of blue and X-rated, except we didn't put it on screen. But anyway, and Tuck, was right there with us all. I'm thinking of Tuck he always wore shorts. B, Tuck when Cat Dog, another great friend that Peter Hannon started Cat Dog. And I think maybe it was Pavmeyer, but I feel like it was Tuck who started the huge like parody of Cat Dog that went on for like a year of all the artists. We were all coming up with Cat Dog, Cat Dog, Cat Dog Day Afternoon.
They were the kind of people who would, while they had a bunch of stuff to do, they would also have a group comic they were sending around. And Dan Povenmire spent as much time telling stories as working, and he got an incredible amount of drawing done. But I saw that Mickey K. I just posted last week the Mickey K. Speaks Out, and it had all the frames of him swinging at the ball.
Oh, love it! I wish I'd seen that.
It opens with the pitcher on the mound, Spuds McGee on the mound at the first shot, and behind him is all the billboards with the names of all the crew on them, and like an auto parts and Kenji's tires, and it said Dan's Philosophy Shop on one of them. Going into his office, like going to Dan's Philosophy Shop. But anyway, all these people, all of them, worked on the show we're talking about. It was, a giant group of people, and all contributed tons of original stuff to these stories.
Speaking of which, there's another thing that should not go unmentioned, and that is that Craig played Gerald's harmonica. Whenever Gerald was playing harmonica, that's Craig.
That was a very musical episode, Haunted Train.
Yeah.
They get to the location. He's Arnold dares Helga, and then the three of them have to go to the train station at midnight, and they sit down and play the harmonica. And as I recall, Jim, we had the tune, and yet I know we just laid it down on the spot. I played the harmonica first, and Jamil sang it, and that's take one. You say he lost his mind, went crazy on that day, and that's like the Haunted Train song, but it's not. It's really two different songs. His first, like, Waiting on a Haunted Train.
Oh, yeah.
And Jim's Sometimes Late at Night, and they kind of have the same refrain, but they're two different songs. And we recorded all that stuff on the spot. And Jim, you would probably were there to go, okay, that's good enough. I can take this and build it. So luckily, Jim was always my musical director in these things, but
it wasn't like it was a super invented melody.
That's true. Jamil, what a wonderful.
That's when Jim invented the blues.
Jamil Smith, the voice of Gerald, could barely sing in pitch. He would often sing. If you listen to It's Fruits from episode 1, Downtown is Fruits, Gerald's just like wrong on everything.
Nice.
But God damn it, that guy brings it. He is yes. Gerald, even on episode 1, it was like he is so there. He brings it, and he brought. Same with this one.
The spirit of Rex Harrison flowed in his veins, man.
Yeah. Anyway, wonderful timing, a wonderful performance. He busted it out instantly, and then later, when you were in post on that, Jim, you wrote the Haunted Train song. Wait, no, you must have. We animated.
Did you do it before?
You must have.
I think I knew kind of what I was going to do before we went into the record. I actually have no recollection of that session whatsoever, but it seems like I probably knew roughly what I was going to do. And I'm a huge ZZ Top fan, so that's what I had in my head, was like a ZZ Top shuffle, from the beginning. So that's where we
Yeah.
ended with
It's
it.
funny.
So,
Plus,
And
so
that's-
like
Steve's
a
beard
very
was there.
What's that?
that's basically the making of that episode. It's kind of musically driven. I feel like, and Josie wrote that script, and
I was just going to say, Craig, because I looked it up when we were I was like, I thought you did. Was it her idea?
it was, I think she pitched it, although we were in those earliest days, Steve and Joe and I would kind of try to plan everything. The three of us would all have to kind of like mutually agree on what a story was going to be. And then we'd give the writing job out to a freelancer or to one of us. And in those earliest days, we would write them all together almost. We would just like even get in there working on the drafts together. But then quickly, by the time we got to the middle of season one, everybody was so busy with their own thing that we worked less together and just kind of took stuff and ran. But Josie, that was her first and only script for us. And we rewrote the hell out of it. I'm sure, we were, like I said, we were figuring out what the urban legends were and how we wanted to do it. And the point of that one is Grandpa is driving everything. He's going, oh, so you're bored. Well, I'm going to tell you a legend.
I'll tell you a story.
And then in the end, and it ends like all of our urban legends. Like Arnold and Gerald are usually, or Helga are arguing. Definitive. There is no Weazened, or there is no haunted train, or Stoop Kid left his stoop. You're kind of looking for absolutes, and Pigeon Man too. Where did Pigeon Man go? These are things that the fun of it is to end it with a little like, did he? I just saw Pigeon Man fly away, or the haunted engineer is riding on a train somewhere singing that song. And the train roars by Brainy, who's sitting on the fence where they threw him off the train and he landed in the mud. He must have cleaned up and put on a new outfit and got out there to be on the fence to watch it go by. So what can I say, man? These are cartoons. Their logic is like Swiss cheese, and the story points. The question I'm always thinking is it entertaining? And I love a mystery, and I love that the mysteries are solved and not solved. I remember the end of Four-Eyed Jack, a second season urban legend that I wrote, and I just wanted to do a ghost story because I believe in ghosts. And I remember Rachel at one point going, "Wait, you don't believe in ghosts?"
Right.
And I said, "Yeah." And then we just round and round, argued about it. So
that went on forever. That one,
yeah.
I feel like.
So I think that's the fun of it, is that, we were intentionally trying to just kind of be circular and have everything get resolved and not get resolved kind of forever. That's how series TV works best.
That's why it made it a lot of fun, not knowing if, like, fuck, was that real or was that so I liked it. There's two scenes in particular with this episode that watching it back again this morning or this afternoon when I got home are still pretty vivid. It's when the lightning crashes before they go into the steel mill. And it's like they all go black, but they had the red outline around them. I had never really seen anything like that other than Batman, the animated series at that time. And I just thought it was really cool. It set the tone, it set the mode. And the other thing that I loved, anytime Brainy comes on and Brainy gets brained, it's fun. Like Helga just picks him up. Helga has to be the strongest person I've ever seen. She picks him up, and I think at one point in time, she's holding him by the belt loop by one hand, and she just chucks him. Yeah, just chucks him. No facial expression whatsoever. She tosses them, and they just go on with the episode. I thought it was
they close the door and then they arrive at the mill. Yeah, it's just one moment. Yeah, that's a lot of that is Tuck.
Oh man,
I think
episode
we
was
probably
fun.
wrote it as a group, and Tuck ran with it. As I recall, it's a beautiful moving animated shot where the train comes close, and as at its closest, you see her getting ready to throw it, and the train's already turned the corner, and it's in profile when he flies out and lands in the mud. It's a beautiful shot. It's completely.
Yeah, that it was, man. Beautiful episode. And the next one we're going to talk about is Wheeze and Ed, and I love this one for so many reasons. I mean, I alluded to it at the beginning, but three things stick out a lot. The first one, and I'm so glad I had the volume up because my kids were really loud when I got home. But I heard a name I have not heard about since I left Seattle in 2010-ish,
Irish
right?
fish and chips.
Ivar's Fish and Chips. So when my first duty station when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Bremerton, Washington. We would take the ferry from Bremerton, Washington to Seattle because I didn't even have a car at that point. So I would get on that ferry on the weekend. I get there Labor Day weekend or whatever, I think whatever holidays in May Memorial Day weekend. I go to Seattle. Seattle's done up. It's the prettiest summer I've ever seen in my life. I'm from Florida. It's 107 degrees outside right now with the heat index mosquitoes all over it's miserably humid, right? I get over here and I get on the base and they're like, you came at the perfect time. He was like, this is the greatest 2 weeks of summer you're ever going to have in your life. And I never understood what they were talking about until the rainy season started. So we get on the ferry, we go over, and the first thing we get off and see is I see the big fisherman, Ivar's Fish, or I was at Ivar's Fish. I can't remember the rest of the title, but that restaurant. And then I get there and I'm watching people feed the seagulls. Seagulls are snatching fish and French fries. I had a seagull follow us the entire way from Seattle back to Bremerton. I was just feeding him French fries the entire time. I just want to see how far he go, But that was something that made me flash back to 2010, right? The other thing was a line that the fisherman used. He said, everybody can come over for $1, but he looks at Harold and it's a close-up pan up of Harold. He's like, but he'll cost $2. I thought being a fat kid myself growing up, I was like, oh, that one stung on a whole nother level. And then
Sounds like
the
a
one,
Steve line. But anyway.
Yeah.
the last thing that I thought set this episode so beautifully apart from the rest of them was there's a shot when Sid is setting up Gerald to tell the story of Wheeze and Ed. It has these beautifully like just still shots of these amazingly illustrated. It just reminded me of Where the Wild Things Are. Just the line detail, how rough yet how intricate it was, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's not like anything else that ever was on Hey Arnold
no,
either.
no, it's
It's
a one and done
it's
type of thing.
so
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
well,
beautiful.
that was our I guess our third urban legend. And we
I
know we
loved it.
got the thing where Sid sets up Gerald and Gerald tells it and you dissolve into, and we usually would go, yeah, we didn't have any extra money for urban legends, so to go like dissolving from frame to frame, that's actually animation production wise, that's a way to save money. And
Mhm.
so probably 12, 15 drawings. I'd have to watch it again. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but and I think Chris Robertson was directing that section, and
Wow.
he may have been Chris.
I see. I'm just looking. I see that Dan and Julie Murphy.
Were the directors of, and Sherm
I
was
had,
on
yeah,
that, I feel. I think Sherm was a board artist on that.
I'm
But
sure because he was probably with Dan. Right?
yeah, and so somehow though that art that was something special. I think Jamie Mitchell, our supervising director, may have that direction may have come from Jamie, but I thought it was great. It was really cool, and it is something new. It doesn't look like anything else. It has that storybook vibe, like you said. It has a kind of Prohibition days,
Yes.
gangster vibe that I also
Mhm.
really like.
So with something like that, obviously you guys, you're saying you're collabing and you're always trying to plus it, right? You're always trying to up the animation, the writing. Like how would something like that, so I know this is fucking 30 years ago, so it's almost impossible to remember, the finer details. But how would a shot like that
Greg
come? Like I'm
remembers
I'm thinking
everything.
I wouldn't be surprised. But how does a shot like that
He
like kind of
does.
evolve? It just does it start from like, oh, it'd be really cool to have this one vague picture of somebody that might be Wheeze and Ed or
Yeah, we had a lot of chances for us to all get in sync on the story, and one of them was a table read, which Jim probably didn't get to come to those. It would be a really rare like musical table read where we would have the luck to have Jim with us too. But the artists and the writers were and the just the crew were all welcome to sit a couple days before we go in and record
Mhm.
the next script, and we would read the script out loud. And that would be our opportunity to talk about things like this. The supervising directors were there. The animation directors, like Larry Licklider, did so much great work. He probably the animation directed
Sure.
Haunted Train and possibly this one, possibly Ed. But they would talk about that. And that'd be the time to express that. Like, what are we going to show for this? And sometimes people would start nailing right on the spot, but often that just the artist would then we call that a handout when the script was finished and recorded, and then I'd cut it down to 10 minutes and change to make an 11-minute cartoon. And we would sit with the script and the tape we'd made and play a cassette tape of the cut and hand it out. Basically go, so here we are, we're in the urban legend part. What do you want to do? And the artist would have ideas and say, how about if we do this? And we'd say, sure. And so it was that's where the collaboration happened. I'm sure Weez and Ed was just like all the rest of them. We recorded it, table read it together, then went and recorded that final version, cut that down to length, handed it out to the artist. They boarded it. Then when it came back and got all, the animation, the animatic was done and the thing came back as animation, we'd cut it again to exactly 11 minutes. And then when we really considered it locked, where that was picture, then Jim would come in, watch it with us, and that would be his chance to make suggestions about what he was going to do. So much of what Jim did, we would just go, there you go. And he knew what to
Let
do.
him cook.
Jim knew
Amazing. Absolutely.
only God, I don't know, man. If I was like, often if I saw in the animation that I wasn't really communicating it to me yet, that I really wanted this to be about Big Patty and what she was really thinking, or that someone wants to do something but they're not, I would say to Jim, please make it so I can tell this is about what Helga's feeling or this is about what Harold's feeling. But Jim knew what to do.
Craig told me something that's like early on in my career, because I was pretty much starting out when we did Hey Arnold. Craig at one point said, in every scene, the composer is doing the job of looking through some character's eyes. You're in somebody's soul, you're in somebody's spirit, you're there, whatever, in that scene, and that's your job. And so those conversations were always about that kind of thing. It's like, what's Big Patty feeling? You're playing Big Patty for this cue, or you're playing Arnold, or you're playing Gerald, or and very occasionally, the scoring practice nowadays is a lot of times you're some ironic hipster standing off in the corner observing everybody else that's in the scene, and that's the way things get scored. But in animation, a lot back then, it was kind of the really traditional approach to it. And I've always found that idea super useful as a composer.
That's so smart, Craig. Yeah. It's amazing having learned, having learned from both Craig and Jim and Steve and Joe, so much other director, but what Craig described, which sounds like, yeah, but it's this was like so many steps. And the thing, and like, I just remember the first one, like Weez and Ed. I just love Weez and Ed because Craig and I know each other well. Like we both love history, like Jim does. Both love history, both love mysteries. And so it's like, oh man, these are, this is like perfect. So like, when we did like the Orson, our odes to many others, like Orson Welles, a Halloween episode. It's like, unabashed.
Another horror story.
Yeah. But adding all these elements, like writing it was like, okay, like great script, but then adding, it's like, holy shit, these artists, like a Tuck directing comes in, it's like, it's so much better. And then honestly, I would say it even if he wasn't here. And then the music comes in, it's like, oh my Lord, like you could imagine it in your head when writing it, but you could never imagine that it actually would come to that kind of amazing fruition. So
but you bring up a really important point. And
finally,
if it's not there in the script, it's not going to be there in the final product.
Yeah.
We all do everything that we can to make everything that we work on as best as it can be. But honest to God, without the writing, shit's going to be flat. Excuse my French. Uh, it's the secret sauce that makes everything work downstream from that. It's like what you can't build a house on sand. You got to build it. You have to build it. You have to build it on something that's going to hold up
Yeah.
the rest of the structure. So,
Yeah.
hats off, gents.
Well, thanks, man. That's
Yeah.
why, that's why we're sitting here 30 years later talking about Hey Arnold, is that it did have good writing and it did have good music and it had
And
good art.
it did. And also, I mean, like, look at it like now. I know that I don't know how old you are. I mean, like so many people, but people look at it
35.
now. All right, cool. Like right in the pocket, right? So,
Yeah.
but also like things that we've all worked on since, and not to take away from them, they have been emotional. Like we did emotional. I mean, Craig and I have done, and Jim, we've done many series together now. How I'm so grateful. But I mean, to do these true emotional little movies that we got to make every episode. I mean, a lot of other series and some even couple that I've run, it's kind of like, that's a cute kid story. This was just like, holy shit, here we have
Yeah,
like
it
a
really got to go dark and deep. And I don't even know why, except it was the mid 90s. It was the Wild
why
West.
did
They were
we
just
talked about
like
this like
throwing money at us and getting out of our way all day long. I mean,
you
we
should do an
fought like
obnoxious
crazy in
guy
season one.
harassing his daughter and a drunk mother and like and all these weird borders, which hats off to
Yeah.
Craig for coming up. It's like absolutely, that's what kids want. It's like
But
let's
I mean, the fighting and the struggling and the can we do it and can't we do it was mostly between us. All the creatives on
completely.
Hey Arnold. It was like a brawl where we were, I'm so happy that it was such a brawl, because looking back, I can only imagine it was because everybody wanted it to be good so
Mhm.
hard. They all wanted it to be so good, so hard, that we were all fighting each other, going like, no, uh, childhood is about this. And so the result was, I don't know, man. I just feel like that was a great time to make cartoons, apparently, because
It was the
Absolutely. No, you're
greatest.
right.
got so
It's
much
like
rope. It was hilarious how much
we
rope
were
we.
so passionate. I mean, it was a brawl, like it was a creative brawl. We had like fights and almost fist fights about story points on a kid. I
Yeah.
mean, and like
Dan
look at
Povenmire, I remember one time Dan Povenmire, they wanted to he got a note to take one line out. One line. Can you cut this line? He said, if that line is cut, the whole story makes no sense. And then it was like, geez, okay, Dan, you can have that line.
I wonder what episode
Do
it
you remember
was.
the line?
I
Do
can't
you remember the
remember
line?
the line.
Fuck.
I can't even remember the episode.
You
I
have
just
to, you
remember
have to
Povenmire and his courage of his convictions. And we all were like that. Everybody, I mean, I wasn't as
we had
dramatic as that,
such
but
huge fights
everyone
with
has their own
Vixen.
style too. Everyone kind of has their own way of being that
Yeah.
kind
Such
of.
huge fights with Steve, like amongst us with Steve. I mean, about story, but about story points, which was like, I
Oh
totally
yeah,
agree with
Steve would go to the
Craig.
mat over stuff too.
Literally a word.
Absolutely.
And I agree with Craig. Like we were so passionate about every story that we wanted to, and fights with Larry Likeletter and other
Totally. Larry would get really mad and upset and say, I don't want to do this one. And I'd be like, why? And it would be about some story point. He'd say, nah, that's too much. You're going to ruin it. I remember Antoinette, I'd come into work and she'd say, Craig, you're going to ruin Hey Arnold if we go ahead with this plan. I can't sleep. She was pacing around. She couldn't sleep.
that
Waiting for me
famous
to come in
morning.
at 9 in the morning. Like, what are we going to do about this? So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I have not had that kind of working experience since, honestly.
Yeah, dinosaur train. We're like, holy shit, that's a huge dinosaur. What are we gonna do with this one?
Yeah. Anyway, back to Weez and Ed.
So before we rotate into Pigeon Man, I wanted to circle back to something you had mentioned, Jim, and something that I find so it's perfect. Like I've told both of you at the same time that I don't think of Arnold without the music. I don't think about the music without Arnold. They're very symbiotic. You can't have one without the other. And I don't think there's another show out there that I think about like that as much of it, right? So how do I even fucking word this question, man? I mean, how much easier is it to work with somebody like the creator that can speak your language, Jim? Because I got to imagine you've worked probably with a lot of people that can't really speak music the way Craig can. So what is having somebody like that to work with like?
Great question.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, it's an ongoing conversation in the composer world about musical language and how difficult it is to work with people that don't have musical language. And I think some creatives are uh, they find it difficult to talk about music because they feel like they don't really have the technical language to talk about
Mhm.
music. Like they don't know all the Italian words for the different things that happen, or they might think a French horn is a trombone, which is a really easy mistake to make, or they might think a guitar is a mandolin, another easy mistake. So there's always, people have egos and they want to not screw up, and uh, so these conversations can be super fraught. Um, I don't think Craig and I ever talked about any of the music in Hey Arnold in language that was arcane or elevated or anything. I mean, we're of an age. We grew up liking and listening to similar kinds of music. Craig is one of the most musical collaborators I've ever had. I mean, we must have written like 200-300 songs together. He's a great singer. Oh my God, uh, so um, it's like falling in love with somebody. It's easy to take all the good stuff about that relationship for granted, and I
Mhm.
take Craig for granted. Everything we've worked on, I've taken him for granted to the max, and I get notes from him from time to time, but compared to other projects that I've worked on, almost nothing. And the indication there is that we're blessed with
We're speaking the same
having,
language.
yeah, we have sensibilities. He all problems. I like the way he writes scripts and songs. Our songwriting process is he'll write a lyric, he'll send me the lyric. Sometimes he'll sing me a little bit, like the Dinosaur Train theme. That was totally Craig all the way, from the very beginning. But the amount of input varies from song to song. But we've never really, at least I can't. You correct me if I'm wrong. Have you ever had a struggle
God,
about any?
exactly. We would always the thing I love too is it's always very result oriented. You're going to sit down and have a session, and it's like you're coming out with something because you have to. We're making TV and we're on a schedule, and so I love that. It allows us to not be too precious and just go like, what do you think of this? And I love too. I love how this stuff lives forever, Jim. It's like we went to in April, we went to Dallas for the Total Eclipse with the Ready Jet Go team. And the Ready Jet Go band is me and Jim's son Garrett, our old pal from the guitarist on everything we've ever done,
Nick
Nick
Kyrgo.
Kurgo. It's like it's a bunch of old friends, and we sing those old Jet songs that we wrote in 2014, 2015, 2016. They're now 10, 9, 8 years old. And it was so fun to just go, I love it. We just had to write these songs because that's what that episode called for. And now these songs have a life and they're going to just be out there. That's what I really love about music making and songwriting it. I'm so glad I got to get pulled into that world. And Jim mentored me through all that stuff. I played a little guitar and sang a little bit when I met Jim. And by now I'm a professional songwriter.
Who knew?
Yeah.
And that's with this correspondence course, I now have a degree.
Talk about urban legends.
It's right. It's on the job training.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extraordinary to watch. I mean, I don't need to. I mean, I don't really need to say it, but to watch them together because it was like complete marriage of the minds and
Mhm.
melody of the minds because never like the easiest thing, and also like dear friends.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's great to be able to even know people for this long as I've known these two guys.
yeah. And also, it's kind of funny because I think that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig. Like, 'cause, you know, like working to like how Joy, we do it in a sec, do it back in a second. Like all the stuff going on in the office, like, you know, then you're in the middle of production. It's like literally sometimes like, I don't know, well, especially like Dinosaur Trip, like sometimes like, you know, 10, 15 scripts at all different and productions, things coming in to watch, things writing stuff, rewriting stuff. And I think it probably was a joy to go like, can I just go and do music with Jim? Like, I'm
Oh,
sure like there
yeah.
were times like I gotta get like you guys are all fucking crazy and you're all
I loved any session where we had to go and do music. It was always the most fun. When we would record, we only had a couple
yeah, the
of
coolest
musicals
space
that
also.
had many songs to get. The opera and Eugene in season 5. But those were the happiest times I ever had. I remember, and now I'm going way off subject, but I remember when we recorded the opera all afternoon at Horta in the winter, as I recall, and then we left that session after just like it was like you were like I could have danced all night. You're just like wired now. And we had to go to a all company meeting, remember, in the ballroom of the
Oh
Sheraton,
yeah, yeah.
Universal Sheraton that Albie was running. And we walked into the room and the door opened and the whole Arnold crew that had gone to the recording session came late into that meeting. And everyone got up and cheered. And I didn't know why. We burst in the door and they all got up and cheered. And I'm like, they must be grokking how high we are on that. I literally like I could have danced all night. And I just want to say that those sessions were the most fun I've ever had professionally.
Incredible.
Yeah, they were
Yeah, those
really
were not
great.
bad sessions for
So
sure.
music
And
making
the
as
sessions
a
with
part of cartoon making, just like a huge piece, just like you cannot replace that piece.
I gotta say, like, I look at the stuff that Dan. I know this is totally off subject that Dan Povenmire's done. You know, great series that he's done. He and Swampy have done at Disney. And I mean, he's a musician, but he got I think he was watching Craig, and he maybe contributed to some song like "What's Opera." He had a version of. He contributed that. Then he was like, God, I get to do this. He totally watched what Craig did.
Yeah. Well,
So good for him.
totally. The hands-on song making is the one of the biggest benefits of this business. I can't, and the way music and animation work together and the way they fold into each other is better than live action. The end. Fight me.
I can't, I can't agree more. Well, thank you for expounding upon the relationship between animation and music. I really appreciated that. And then the last one, this last episode, like I said, I told you, Joe, this is where you're getting hot tagged in for this one, man. This is all you. Pigeon Man, Pigeon Man. This is the bar when it comes to any Hey Arnold episodes. If I've got to go, and if I meet somebody that doesn't know what Hey Arnold is, and I know I can get them hooked off of one episode, I'm giving them Pigeon Man. There was so much heart in this episode. There was so much just beautiful. It was beautifully sad. You know what I mean? I told Craig this story. If it wouldn't have been for this episode, I don't help a pigeon myself. I'll make this one really quick. I was staying with my older sister. There was a pigeon that was walking around, and its wing was busted. He was dragging its wing, and I was like, "Hey, Shelly, that's my sister's name. There's a pigeon. It's acting weird." She's like, "Well, go pick it up." So I went and picked it up, expecting it to fly away. It didn't fly away. I was able to pick it up. There was a little band on the bottom of his foot. I called the number. This guy at this time in Orlando was training pigeons to either be not so much a Chester, like a carrier pigeon, but he was training them as like a racing pigeon, I believe is what he said. It's been a very long time. This is going back like fucking 20 years maybe now at this point. But I called him and he wanted to give me a pigeon, right? And my mom's like, I'm not giving you a pigeon. And I love pigeons. I've always wanted a pigeon. And my mom said, no, absolutely not. So I got a cockatiel out of it instead. Named him Nacho. He was the coolest fucking bird in the world. And if you guys
Hilarious.
remember a show that Danny Antonucci did back in the end of the 90s and early 2000s, Ed, Ed and Eddie,
Oh
that
yeah.
theme song by Patrick Carrad, right? It started out with a whistle. My bird memorized that the entire summer, going from
Oh,
fifth grade into
wow.
sixth grade, and he would wake me up because every morning Cartoon Network in my house was turned on because I'd be the first person up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Ed and Eddie was that first show on. My bird Nacho whistled that whole fucking song, right? So for a year he was going, and then the first day of summer comes around. This little bastard, I tried to sleep in one time. He woke me up at 6 o'clock in the morning whistling Ed, Ed, and Eddie. So there was a huge thank you for not only getting that cool bird, but getting that cool story, but having such a huge and deep
That's
connection with this
wild,
episode.
man.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
so, yeah. Wow. What a story. That's incredible.
Thank you. But what a story. We're talking Pigeon Man, though, right? So this
Yeah.
episode, like I said, beautiful. The dialogue alone. I mean, I could have, read back your entire. I'm pulling it up now. I could have read back the entire episode about how beautiful this dialogue was. But there was something that I've thought about so much, especially after rewatching this episode today. It's right after Harold, and we're skipping a little bit ahead, but it's right after Harold and Stinky and the gang go up there and wreck Pigeon Man's house. Arnold had just taken him out for pizza. I thought it was funny how even back in the 90s, you guys were shitting on pineapple and ham pizza because that's just
I
something
know.
that people are
I
still
think
discussing and fighting over now.
funny.
But I thought that was a really cool moment. And the moment I'm talking about, he's like, we can build it. They'll come back. And then he goes, of course they'll come back. They're birds. And then he's like, I trust them. He's like, I understand them. It's people I don't understand. And now so more than ever is that last little bit of that line of dialogue you read so fitting for the time, right? I just don't understand people. Obviously, before we hit record, you had said this is like the first episode you had pitched, when you were coming on to Hey Arnold. So I got to know, how does this episode come into your head as Pigeon Man? How does Pigeon Man start?
Sure. Um, and I will tell you, and then I'll give Craig huge credit because he helped a lot, honestly. But so Pigeon Man, I had before moving to LA, I'm from the East Coast. I lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, which we all have to do our Hoboken time together. And of course, as if you've ever seen the movie On the Waterfront, so I love that movie, took place in Hoboken. Have you ever seen it? Marlon
No, I
Brando.
haven't, but I'll write it down.
Yeah, On the
Wonderful
Waterfront.
Brando film.
It's the I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender. Maybe you've heard that line movie. I could have been
Hmm.
somebody. So it takes place
Yeah.
in Hoboken, and
Scored by
there's a lot
Leonard
of stuff.
Bernstein.
What's that?
Scored by Leonard Bernstein.
Stored by Leonard Bernstein. Carl Malden's in it. He's the priest. I mean, it's a great and it's
Brilliant,
and
brilliant.
it was like film. I mean, anyway, it was filmed years before I lived there, but it was filmed like a blog. Like people are like, that's where Frank Sinatra lived, and that's where they filmed On the Waterfront. Anyway, On the Waterfront, a big part of it is that he is like this thug, but he's sensitive because he has pigeons on the roof of his house. So I always like that. And so it's like a city story. And I don't know, I just got I combined that when I pictured them, I combined that with a loner. I just like the loner character. And I just remember just writing the outline, and I just like I married that with at the end of Grapes of Wrath. So
Oh,
that's
did we all go like he needs to make the Grapes of Wrath speech, or did you just bring that? I can't remember.
I know I came up with it, and then you all were like, yeah, and then we, and there was no doubt. I mean, thank you for the compliment, Julian, but there's no doubt. And I was, it was like my first or second script that there was notes on it, definitely. And I always got notes, and I still do to this day. It's like, it's too talky, too many words. I was like, but I mean, Craig was like, this is an urban like he said, this is a legend, and so and really helped, structure it. So I mean, thanks again, thanks for the
So
compliment.
cool. Just think, Joe, that's Pigeon Man's actually about like 15 half hours in, right?
Yeah,
Like 15A or something. And by that point, we knew like Arnold helps a guy. That was like
that was a big category.
That's one of the A categories of the series. And so it was a perfect Arnold helps a guy story. And he reminded me a little bit of Boo Radley too from
That's exactly
To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a yeah. No, exactly.
And come on, Vincent Schiavelli the actor, the character actor, the wonderful character actor who plays him and who plays Mr. Bailey in the Christmas show.
And who plays Mr. I mean, do you know who he is, Julian?
That
Okay,
guy,
so
that people, Arnold. It's people I don't understand. I mean, you could give that guy the phone book and he'd make it sound great. And so we really had a wonderful thing going there. We had Joe's script and Vincent to read it. And you notice on the spot we named him Vincent.
we did.
And Arnold at the end goes, Vincent. And we just thought of it there. Like, shouldn't he shouldn't he call to him or say something? And so
Right.
Vincent. And it's so great. I know that stuff was all being cooked up on the spot.
Oh, we did it
And the guy was, Vincent was a wonderful actor and he was having a ball and
Well, first of all, Craig,
into the part and
so into it. Do you remember so the script? I got to say, I mean, a lot of scripts went through a lot, and the music. I mean, I know it's again, music so enhanced it. But that script was fairly easy in the process. Like it was just there. I mean, so I'm lucky about that. And then I was like, got this, nailed it. The next one was probably like 50,000, like 50,000, drafts of it. And it's like this, whatever the next one was. Anyway, but I didn't even know who.
Right, it probably was such a good, solid idea. Just so good. Like we knew he's going to be this weirdo. Then he meets him and he says almost nothing. He's like Boo Radley. Arnold gets through to him and he invites him to pizza. That's another great read when Arnold says, don't you miss, I don't know, like pizza? And he goes, pizza. Oh, pizza. And then you cut to pizzeria. Italian music is playing that Jim provided. And he's like,
totally.
This one's, are these bits of pineapple?
There's like, I mean, I grew up in a small town, like right near Hoboken, and like there's always weird in any city. There's always weird characters, and I just love that. Also, he had Miss Slovak, like she's still there. Like he went to the same school, and that vision at the end, we talked about it, Craig and I mean, we definitely came up with that together because I like the idea that at first he was going to like be. I thought like a pigeon carried him off, and I was like, it's a cartoon. Why can't it happen? And then the idea that they all did, and whoever, I'm not sure, whoever maybe.
Well, that was great because then that becomes his costume at the very beginning. He's wearing that crazy harness with the little
the ring.
Rings in it, grommet, and he strings up, and it's all magically done, all boarded by Jay Lender. That's a great sequence.
That's right, Jay.
Although I think it was Jay's first board, and so the camera
Jesus
line
Christ,
like crazy. It was a hot mess. Actually, we were flopping shots and. There's even a shot where Arnold's flopped, which I hate because then he's got 4 points on the wrong side.
Right.
Symmetrical hat ain't where it's, But yeah, man, Joe, a very early Purdy script, very first board for Jay. That kind of stuff is probably why those shows we're talking about them 30 years later. Is that everyone is kind of the thrill of. We're all kind of taken off, I think that
Literally.
a lot of really good energy in that. Let's talk about the ending too.
No, I was just going to say, how lucky that, I mean, I knew, like, I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this as a cartoon. Not that anyone cares, but I know, like, I grew up in a house without a television for whatever reasons, and never, like, hardly ever watched cartoons. Honestly, I mean, I got an education in college. But did I ever watch a cartoon straight? Not high. Anyway, and then with these guys, but like a joy and like putting it out there, like I could see like, oh my God, conversations immediately with Craig and Joe and Steve. Maybe Steve, I guess Joe was still there at that time. It was like, we can do poetry. That's why I was like, we can do, something that's a little nihilistic and poetic and hugely emotional. So that, I mean, to do that episode, to like put that out there was still to this day, like so grateful that we could do that. And the end, I know we talked about the end when it happened. I was like, Jesus Christ. Also, kind of literally, I'm like, people are gonna like but I mean, I don't know. I think that we were all like, that's juicy. I know that I remember Steve distinctly saying like, be hilarious, because Steve was always like, we got to button the button on the end of every episode. So he was like, wouldn't it be hilarious that like later that night he's like, I miss Pigeon Man, like he'll think, and then like he crashes into his ceiling in his room. It's like, well, I tried. those fucking pigeons couldn't really harry me for like, like
Oh man. And instead, I think partly because it really is a kid's cartoon.
I never heard that.
I know. So
Right? So yeah, those kind
hilarious.
of conversations we'd have where what if it, if Snow White gets married and a year later she gets divorced? It's just like the fun of like imagining what would happen next. But it's an 11-minute kids cartoon. You gotta jam those 3 acts out as fast as you can. And the end when he flies away, that's a kind of a funny lucky ending because it's a sudden ending. He harnesses up and flies away and says, kids are still making memes out of that. Always remember to wash your berries, fly toward the
Wash your
sun.
berries and fly towards the sun.
So
Yeah,
I think that's really
loaded.
cool. It's like it's like you got to get out, and that's why those stories end the way they do. You have 11 minutes and away you go. And I also will add that when that show was done, we knew we had something great. But then Lang put the music on it, then it became really fucking great. Just like the baseball. I showed the cut of the baseball to Herb Scandal because I knew he was a baseball fan. Our became the president of Nickelodeon, and he was out visiting, and I showed him baseball, going, "Look, Arnold's going to be a cool show. It's going to have this stuff in it." But then I showed him only the cut without the music, believe it or not, because Jim hadn't done it yet. And then when Jim put the music on it, I was just like, "Oh, this just became 10 times better." It now it's inextricably connected to Jim's music. You'll never be able to look at it without thinking of the music ever again. And it's the same with Pigeon Man. Pigeon Man has an ending that's just like heartbreaking. And I think it's there in the script. Jim gives us the credit. He says, you can't do it without a good foundation. So I think the script is there, and that's why Pigeon Man is great. But then Jim put that music on, and it's just like now you can never think of it without thinking of Jim's great music.
Absolutely. Also, I gotta say, I mean, again, grateful and like how lucky to make such kind of a deep and emotional story. But also at the end, when we were talked about it then, and then we were in the midst, as and we like moved on to the next one. We knew, that was a really wonderful experience. That was a good one. I could just tell, like, oh, that's good. But at the end, talking about the end, I when I just like wrote it down, I was like, can we do this? I saw it as hopeful because he was like, because he was getting away and he was with his best friend. He was like, with pigeons. So they were going, it wasn't like he was going to a better place. Like he was dying. He was literally probably going to a better place.
Literally going to a better town. He was going to find a new one. It was going to be
He was going to Pigeon Town.
Well, I never understood that about the fan base until I had, like, right before I had Craig on, I had posted, hey, if you could ask Craig any question, what would it be? And literally like 12 or 13 questions was like, did Pigeon Man kill himself? I didn't know that was a fucking thing because I see that moment, I see that shot, even as a little kid.
Yeah.
You listen to what he says. I'm gonna go. He's like, I gotta go somewhere else, type of thing, right? And I'm like, oh, so he's just gonna go somewhere where somebody's not gonna wreck his fucking roof and mess with his pigeons and mess with him. Yeah. He wants his peace and quiet. He told you what he wanted. He wanted to be with his friends, which was the birds. He wanted to be away from people because you couldn't trust people, but he left them with that little piece of, and that's what I loved about Arnold so much is like, you guys never talked down to us. You talked to us. You never talked at us. You talked to us. Right. And it was one of those things where it was like, you would pick up these life lessons as a kid. It's like, be kind to people, be kind to animals, fucking be the best person you can be. You don't have to be perfect because there's every character, even Arnold is flawed in this show. And you guys dealt with such heavy shit. I mean, I told Craig for our Christmas episode last year, Arnold's Christmas is one of the most beautiful, heartbreaking, it's perfect. That's the second one I always tell everybody is like, oh, you got to watch the Christmas. You're going to cry on both of these episodes. And, I had told Craig, it's like that shot where, Mr. Win in Vietnam is coming in and you're starting to go through the kaleidoscope of his emotions. You see the blue for sadness, the red for rage because somebody's invading your country. And then he does, like, I'm trying not to fucking get choked up now thinking about this, but especially being a dad, you got one goal when you start having kids, and that's to fucking protect those kids and give them everything they can to be a successful member of society. And then the only thing that he could offer that kid. It wasn't money. It wasn't anything other than his unconditional love of him lifting up that, like, that is such a powerful fucking moment.
Yeah.
Him lifting
Yeah,
up
yeah.
that baby to give to that soldier because he knew nothing was good was going to come from if they stayed there. You know, if they both stayed there, they probably both could have died. He gave that baby the best option of living and becoming something by leaving. And that I can't imagine. And that's a fucking kid show. That's a 30-minute
no.
cartoon on Nickelodeon. You know what I mean?
We
Well,
do,
that was
and
the
we're like,
Wild West, man, 1995.
I mean, how
That
lucky
was
were
the
we that we could,
Wild West.
and and also to come around. I mean, Craig and Jim know, like we work with people that grew up like yourself, like grew up on it, and like now grew up on even earlier thing or later things. But I absolutely, it's funny because I don't, like we're in the world of rating things, but that's really nice of you to say. I mean, I like there's so many that Craig wrote, Hell Gun on the Couch, and early ones
That's
that it's
another
like
great one too.
they can't, like. Oh, well, actually, I love Joe. I love Joe and Steve, but they would be like whatever mine was the best. But that's that's another podcast. It's like, okay, you win. But I got to say one very quick thing. When Vincent Schiavelli came in to record that, he's from like he's really tall. Like I don't know how tall, but he seemed like he was like
6'8", and he would wear a hat. He was a giant.
He wore like a full three-piece suit, total dandy with a cane and a hat, and was like, okay. And like we're schmoes, and Life with Louis, like Louis Anderson was recorded like right before or after us, and he literally slipped on a banana peel. That's a whole other episode you should do. I saw him slip on a banana peel. I was like, are you kidding me? But Vincent came in, he was like so cultured, and he said, I just came back from a cooking institute in Italy. His like grandfather was the cook. Do you remember that, our chef? To
Yes, Schiavelli.
to some like huge duke or something in Italy. Anyway, it was like a whole thing. And it was like its own little indie movie when he arrived. So that was just, I always have. And I remember when he passed away, like at Christmas time, a few years later. Anyway, yeah, that's
glad we got him for those 2 bits, man. Oh
Lucky
yeah,
to-
and Bailey was in the movie too, so Vincent came in a 3rd session and recorded for us then. Yeah, but just a treat to know a guy like that.
Oh man, it's a treat to have an episode like this. So I figured, I'll cut this next part out. Jim, are you still with us, or are you still frozen up?
Uh-oh.
looks pretty frozen.
He does look.
He's
He's having
yeah,
connection.
yeah, probably. So what I figure we can do is we could end it here. I'll uh I'll see if give him another minute or two to see if he can pop back. I know he's been having issues the last 10 minutes or so. Um, like I said, we'll pick it. I'll cut that last little bit out. But Joe, for the first time being on the podcast, man, thank you for coming on. I like I said, I mean it when I say it. It's like this is the greatest, in my opinion. I love all the episodes. I've told Craig this, so you're going to hear it again, Craig. I apologize. But like, there's not one bad episode of Arnold. I can count on maybe like one hand, how many shows that I think are absolutely perfect. You guys are there. Hey Arnold's there. Excuse me. Hey Arnold's there. Samurai Jack is there. Regular Show is there.
Oh, no.
And I'd really have to sit there and try to think and pull any other shows out. But like those 3 in particular, when I think of cartoons, I think of live action, I think of anything. There's not one filler. There's not one bad episode. There's not one going like, fuck, I could have done without that episode. Perfect. Jim, welcome back, man. My the monologue let the old internets catch up. There's not one bad moment in Arnold for me. It was, like I said, Arnold, King of the Hill, the other one I can't remember. I can't understand why I forgot that one. King of the Hill's the other one. Hey Arnold taught me how to be a kid. I had to be a good kid. Hey Arnold taught me how to be King of the Hill taught me how to be an adult, the things that I should do, So I've learned a lot through watching characters work shit out on the screen. You know what I mean? The music, Jim, hopefully you're still here and you're not frozen up again. The music by itself, I mean, it was beautiful. And then you had the beautiful animation, the beautiful writing you guys did. It was just one hand was just like, it was like this. It was a match made in heaven when it came to Hey Arnold. So forever grateful for the shows you guys did, the music you did, Jim, and then the writing you did, Joe. Perfect. With that being said, we'll end it with this, man. Joe, when you think of Hey Arnold, is there one thought, one emotion, one word that comes to mind, or one memory that comes to mind while working on Hey Arnold?
Uh, those are all different things. One word is
Well, here, let me
no, no, no.
let me reword that. So
Yeah,
when you
no, that's
think of
fine.
Hey Arnold,
Yeah.
okay, I got you.
No, I got it. It let me write the freedom of working with the most creative people that I've ever worked with, and to tell the stories that probably would not be able to tell on stage, screen, or or otherwise, or in a movie. So just grateful, and just like the best memories, from hilarity to lifelong friendships to huge fights. I mean, it's in a weird way that the life of Hey Arnold behind the scenes was on the screen. It was like, the joy, love, emotion, like we were all Helge at times, we were all Arnold at times. And we didn't even get to Harold and Elliot. But anyway, that's the long answer. So, and forever grateful. Like, I have like these great friends, and it's not just great friends who understand, and you spend so much time together, you understand each other, and you understand each other creatively, and to have that kind of mind meld is like, once in a lifetime. So, just grateful.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. What about you, Jim? When you think of Hey Arnold, your time on Hey Arnold, does any one memory, one word come to mind when you think about it?
Um, no, there's all different kinds of joy.
Mhm.
And we live in a world where joy is in short supply right now, I think. But there's a kind of joyfulness and sadness. There's certainly joy and laughter. There's joy and friendship, and that, and also for me personally, the joy of getting to do something really for the first time in over a period of what, 7 years, Craig? I mean,
7, 8 years we were doing that.
7, 8 years, that really gave me, and has continued to give me the most joy of anything that I ever did as a creative endeavor in my life. So that's the word comes up for me.
Now, Craig, you're the last to go, and I've asked you this question twice now before, so let's shuffle the deck just a touch, man. But when you think about Joe and Jim and being able to work with these two gentlemen right here, what's one thought, or what's the first thing that comes to mind when you see the name Joe Purdy and Jim Lang?
I always, yeah, I think about all that time that we got to spend together, and it's sometimes it's in short supply. Like Vixen died, and I was like, wow, I guess I was really lucky to have all those years where where Steve came in every day, and I had him to help me do what I wanted to do. Same with Tuck. Tuck died. I felt the same way. Like that's it. I was really lucky to have had him for all those years working so hard for me. And these guys are still going. So they're a resource today and tomorrow. So I think it's the longevity of this. We're 30 years in now. 30 years ago, Jim and I had already been working together and made the Arnold pilot. And the next year, I met Purdy, and so the incredible longevity is really nice too, because it gives you a chance to kind of see things. We have a really long vision now of what happened, and so we can really see it for what it was. When it was happening, I think we were pretty busy, and
Yeah.
we knew we were having a good time, and we were able to communicate that on the spot. But you know what I mean? It's like you're just so busy that you can barely even stop to take note of how much fun it is. I know we were having some fun though. I know we were. I know we were even
Yeah.
conscious of it as it went down. It's even seems sweeter now though, because like we say that, you don't get those kind of opportunities on every job. And so it's funny to look back and go, man, we really had it in the mid 90s. That was a time where they were just throwing money at the problem.
So lucky.
Problem of
So,
making entertainment.
and so lucky that we got to do so many other series together. My gosh.
Yeah.
All these
Yeah.
other
Well,
hilarity,
I know we have to wrap it
so
up, but I'm gonna take a moment here since we were talking about tech. I found these today. This is a pencil
Oh,
drawing
wow.
a pencil drawing of Tuck's design for Veterans Day, a fourth season special, half-hour special.
That's so
This was
cool.
the winner. This became the color poster, but this was his other trophy, which you can see I've stamped my approval on this
That
drawing.
is so fucking cool.
I love it. Hitler's trying to kill Grandpa apparently with a bazooka. Grandpa's
He's
Like
even
you
whacking
do.
that out of the way and
he's gonna
calling
hit.
back to poke him in the eye. And Arnold's
He
in
can
the
aim with the
front.
curly.
Like, yeah, Grandpa,
Yeah.
that happened. Anyway,
That
With
was
the
so
curl.
cool.
Chuck Tucker probably busted those out in exactly 7 minutes.
Watching Tuck like that. I mean, that was like, I know we had to
Yeah,
wrap.
pencil drawings, man. Look at how that's got a little bit of shading on it because Tuck just naturally had so much graphite built up on his wrists that then he'd erase away to reveal the light.
You got
But
to
it
frame
really
those,
would feel
Craig.
like
You got to frame
Shocking.
those.
Yeah,
Craig has
I
so much to frame. He had like have millions, but there's amazing. Yeah, like you'd be talking like an idea, and Tuck would be like something like this, and hold up like it's like
yeah, we those
like
table
the Mona
reads.
Lisa.
We tried-
Like
we-
oh,
we
that'll
turned it
do.
into the backside of your script has nothing on it, and so we draw constantly while we table read and show it and go, what if he pokes him in the eye like Curly?
I know it's all like grandpa, like we've all sat in different rooms, like different, for other projects. Recent people have grown up like yourself, I don't know, Arnold. And so like, yeah, not many, talking about Veterans Day, not many series got to do grandpa giving Hitler a wedgie. And we didn't get a note on it.
No,
like-
by that point they didn't even give a shit. We were completely on
hell?
our own. Season 1 we had to fight for everything. Season 4 they were like, huh?
Yeah, fuck it.
They
Send
delivered
it.
It was like that,
And Lang, I remember late in the run, Jim, you were like, I wish they had notes for me. I feel like no one even are they even, and I said,
listening.
bro, they just love what you're doing. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Don't worry. You can get as outside as you want. And Jim, you were like, God, Dad, I want to do this score sounds like the Art Institute of Chicago. Yeah. And
I did spend some time trying to break the machine and never succeeded.
That's really fun.
it just makes it better. Later people are just so people can be forever scratching their head going, how the hell did they get to score a show like that?
Amazing. Always thought we should do a live. I mean, you did some live shows, a live show orchestra. Maybe we still can orchestra playing your music, Jim. It's so incredible.
Well,
Yeah.
they did it with the Animaniacs. Fuck, I can't think of his name. It was Rob Paulson. For the life
Yeah,
of me,
Rob. Yeah.
No.
I just can't think of who was it? Who was the other guy?
Maurice LaMarche is the brain.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
it was
that's
Maurice.
Right, Robin. And
it
Travis
was-
McNeil.
But I can't think of the guy that wrote the songs. Randy.
Tom Root. Oh,
No,
not Tom
no.
Ruger.
No, it wasn't Tom Ruger. It was Rand. I can see his fucking face. He was on Batman the Animated Series. He wrote the song with all of the countries in the entire world that Rob sang, and he did it twice. And they took it on the first. It's fucking Randy something. It's gonna bother me for the rest of the night. But nonetheless, man,
Not
you said
Paul
you guys.
Rugg, is it?
No, it's not Paul Rugg. It's we
Anyway.
talked, and then he's got one of those episodes that I'll never be able to release. Joe. I actually had Joe on way back in the day, but and a couple other episodes. My laptop was stolen way back in the day, so that episode was on there. But yeah, they went and did a whole orchestra style show. Rob would come out and sing it. They would hire the local orchestras. They did one in Orlando. They did one in a few other places before COVID, and then shortly after COVID. And then they sold out like crazy. So I have to imagine that's something you guys can do. I mean, you guys have done vinyl pressings, and they've sold out damn near within the first week or fairly quickly. So I got to imagine you could take the music of Hey Arnold on the road with you guys.
Great idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
who
Still
knows?
trying to make that happen someday.
Well, now
Randy
that
Rogel.
Nickelodeon-
Randy Rogel was the guy's name.
Oh,
Randy
weird.
Rogel. But yeah, so 30 years, and here's to 30. I don't drink, but I'm drinking some water tonight, man. But here's to 30 more years of friendship. What the fuck is that, Craig? Because that's some cool shit.
I think maybe I said something and they took it as a cue. 30
Seriously?
years.
30.
Anniversary.
Maybe Maybe that's the
The-
anniversary fireworks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah.
knows?
it
It's
seems
Craig's
like-
appearance at the Democratic National Convention. There's-
yeah. Great speech, man.
Thank you.
Great speech.
uh,
Uh,
Gents, I got it. I have to bail out. I have to go cook dinner for my wife.
I have to do the exact same thing, Jim.
I have to
Absolutely.
cook dinner for Jim's wife also. That's weird.
well, he's been Jim. That's been Joe. That's been Craig. This has been the What's in My Head podcast, and this has been another piece of your childhood. Good night.